Speak up if you have any questions. It's pretty simple. Keystroke, same place. The important things about the payment module: it's secure. It is PCI PA DSS validated. So I'm going to be talking about Keystroke payment module this week. Mike Tabor is going to do third-party payment integration, which is basically the KeyPay with PC Charge next week. And then the week after that, I'm going to talk just about PCI in general. So it's kind of a 3-week series we've got going here. The Keystroke is PA, Payment Application, DSS, Data Security Standard, validated, which is different than being PCI compliant. So just remember there's PCI DSS and PA DSS and all kind of different things, and there is the digital dozen, the 12 points of PCI compliance, of which 2 of them involve Keystroke, and the others are things like lock your front door, keep your virus software up to date, have things documented, and so forth and so on. The Keystroke payment module can be used as a program or a service. We recommend the service. It's always running in the background. It's there. If you're having a problem and you call us, we'll often say, oh, well, shut down the service and run the executable. That's because Windows will give you feedback if an executable stops or fails running or has an error. Windows sends us a message saying this is what happened. With a service, because it's running outside of the current user logged on Windows, you don't get that input from Windows on what's going on. So that's, really the service and the program are the same. It's from the same set of code, but Windows treats them differently, and that's why we might say, oh, try running the executable, because then we can get feedback if there's a problem. Integrates easily with Mercury and Merchant Warehouse. The summit, we're going to be talking about some new stuff with the Mercury Loyalty and Merchant Warehouse Genius, so that's on the horizon. And with the Keystroke payment module, you can run it on one machine for the whole network, although I know, Kevin, are you still running it on every machine in a lot of installations, or?
Yeah, we do it in a lot of places.
Okay.
We don't do it everywhere, but we do it in a lot of places, that's for sure.
Great. Well, I am going to switch. I've got it running right now as a program, and if I can switch my settings, is that it? Yeah. So you see the Keystroke payment module there, and this is the payment module. It is installed with Keystroke. You don't need to run anything else to have the executable installed. It's a pretty simple setup. If you're using Mercury Payment Systems, you pretty much need to put in a merchant number here. The 494901 is the standard test number. If you come to the summit or if you call like Mercury Payment Systems, you can get this nice fancy little test card that it's got a swipe on it. It even has the instructions on the back on how to run test transactions. So it's a handy little thing to have. The tokenization, M token, that's what's used with the MagTech iPad and Mercury Payment Systems. So you would turn that on if you were using one of these handy dandy little MagTech iPad pin pad devices available from Mercury as well. Data status directory, you can do dial-up backup with Mercury so that if your internet connection goes down, it will dial up. If Mercury's back-end processor goes down, the dial-up does not kick into a different processor. The processor's down. It doesn't matter whether you're connecting via internet or dial-up. That's there so that if your internet connection, DSL cable modem, whatever goes down, then you can hook in through a phone line. And the IP address and port are typically used if you're in a enterprise situation like maybe a university or a hospital and there's tighter security where you're going to the internet through a specific IP address and or port. Otherwise, it will automatically assign those. The other thing is you can have different setups. Why would you use these different setting IDs? Maybe you have the case of you're using a Citrix server or a Windows Remote Desktop, and maybe you have 6 stores running from one instance of Keystroke payment module. And you can do that, and you can just set up store 1, store 2, store 3, store 4, so they all have different merchant numbers. And then in each store's data set, you just say, hey, I'm using setting ID store 1. I'm using setting ID store 2. So here I have set up, I can process through Mercury or Merchant Warehouse. Here's the Merchant Warehouse test information. Again, they require a little bit more, that they have a business name, business key, and site ID. Then they have the tokenization. They can also work with a Magtech iPad for tokenization. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this. And now, hopefully you see this little Keystroke payment module where we have a computer name. That's our Dell computer, its IP address, and the port that it is using. Where is it getting this information? It's getting that information from, and if I get my applications correct here, here's my DOS prompt. I'm going to go into my tutor directory, and in here is a file, kpstatus.temp. And when KeyPay is running, it creates this file in the data directory, kpstatus.tmp, and that basically tells Keystroke at all the workstations where the request goes, and it kind of is directing traffic. And if I display it here, it's basically that information, the computer name, what we saw when we were looking at the settings, port, IP address. So that's what Keystroke is checking for, the existence of this file. Now if I go back to my Keystroke program here, I'm going to go into the configuration manager of Keystroke, look under tables and sales payment types, look at my Visa MasterCard setting, and I'm using my authorization method. That's what tells it to process credit cards, KP Credit. I'm just going to hit F3 here to edit that. This is basically a blank file. There's no information. There's no settings ID here. So it's just using the default settings ID. I'm doing credit card. I don't have a card reader for this setup. I can do this test KeyPay. And so what this is doing is it's going out and looking for that KP status. Where is it looking? Well, because I didn't specify a status file location, it's just looking in the default data directory. So that went ahead and passed. I'm going to save that. Now I've also got a Visa MasterCard set up to work with merchantware. And I'm using a different authorization method, KPMW. And here it's basically the identical setup, except I have a settings ID of MW. So it's finding that status file in the Keystroke tutor directory where my data is, and then saying, hey, I'm going to look for that MW settings ID for when I process. So those are those setups. Now I'm basically able to go into the sales manager and sell an item. If I do Visa MasterCard, I type this number in so much I've got it memorized. It goes out and processes that was through Mercury, gives me the complete authorization. I can go to Mercury's merchant portal and log in as Jerry, username Jerry, password Jerry. It's on the back of the test cards there. I can see my transaction process, so I can create an invoice and payment. I can delete it. I can do whatever I want to there and go see it. I can go ahead and print a receipt. And then now I can also, let's find an item here, and I can process. Now this will process through merchantware, and I don't have 5424 10 zeros and 15. Here I have the address in CVV2. I can prompt for that or not prompt for that. Now it's connecting. Let's hope I typed in the whole credit card correctly. Maybe I didn't because it's thinking about it. And it's taking a look at it. Merchant Warehouse also has a portal that you can go to and look at the transactions, and that information is in their test setup. So continuing to think about it, I maybe typed in something wrong. Let's see if I can, or I wiggled my computer and lost my network connection. Oh, it just took a second there. Maybe something's up with our network here, but it did approve it. If I go back here, got my authorization code, approved it for 108. I'm good to go. So I can go ahead and do my receipt if I want to, or just go ahead and save that. When you install Keystroke, the executable gets installed, as does the service, but the service doesn't get registered or set to start as a service. And so when you drop your CD in, you see the, let's see if I can get the right screen here. Here's the screen you get when you drop the CD in. If you select the install other software, bring that up. This is where there is the Keystroke payment module as a Windows service. And basically what this is doing when you run this little program is that it sets the service to start running when you turn on your computer. It registers it. It does all the Windows background stuff. So it's mostly doing registry entries. The programs are there, but it does install that as well. Remember, when you do it as a service, you don't have to be logged on to Windows. It'll start running before you log on to Windows. So if you are using a terminal service environment, or you've got like a Windows server, you can have that set to run so you don't have to be logged on to it to have the service running. If you're using the executable, you have to log on, and then the executable would start running. Also, when you install Keystroke, in the directory docs below your Keystroke directory, there are a couple of documents. One is configuring Keystroke with KeyPay, that gives you a good rundown on how to install it, PCI settings. It's a pretty handy document. Also in there is, if I get to that, the PADSS implementation guide for Keystroke POS and Keystroke payment module. Because of our validation, I have to tell you about this, that it's there. It's good information. Right there on the front page are the 12 points of PCI DSS, and that's 3 and 4 are protect the stored data and encrypt. That's what we do. But yeah, the firewall, the vulnerability management, and antivirus, access control, and maintain policy and documentation, monitor and test. It's all kind of listed in there. There's all kinds of good information in there, but I want to make you aware that that is there and something to look at and use as a resource both for you and for your client, so that they've got a little more information about the PCI DSS. And with that, I think I have covered just about anything. Do you guys out there have any questions for me?
Nope.
If I go back to my PowerPoint, now you probably had a pretty good handle on it, but sometimes you pick up something new. Remember, next week is third-party payment integration, which is basically KeyPay with PC Charge.